The comeback nobody expected. In December 2025, something remarkable happened that most crypto observers completely missed. A coin that was supposed to be dead, a relic from an era when privacy seemed radical, came roaring back. Zcash, known by its ticker ZEC, climbed from below $54 1 year ago to over $440 by late December. That's a 724% increase in 12 months. But here's what matters more than the price: Zcash is back in the conversation at exactly the moment when privacy has become the defining issue in global finance. The coin that nobody talked about for years suddenly has something the world desperately needs. Not because of hype. Not because of a celebrity endorsement or a viral TikTok trend. But because the world got tired of being watched. The origins: Bitcoin with a secret. Zcash was born in 2016, the same year that privacy became a scary word to governments and a sacred principle to hackers. The founder, Zuko Wilcox, took Bitcoin's open-source code and added something revolutionary: the ability to hide transactions completely while still proving they're legitimate. Bitcoin showed every transaction on a public ledger. You could see every movement, trace every coin, watch every wallet. The transparency was a feature. You could verify the network was honest. But you could also see exactly where someone's money came from, where it was going, and how much they had. Zcash changed that equation. Using something called Zcash, short for zero-knowledge succinct non-interactive arguments of knowledge, Zcash made transactions invisible while keeping the network verifiable. The math proved the transaction was real without revealing who was involved. It sounds like magic, but it's pure mathematics. And that's what makes it so powerful. Wilcox didn't want to replace Bitcoin. He wanted to complete it. Where Satoshi Nakamoto built transparency, Wilcox added privacy. The vision was simple: create money that proved itself without exposing itself. The golden age that wasn't. For a brief moment in 2017 and early 2018, Zcash looked like it might change the world. The price climbed to over $800. Developers got excited. Libertarians loved it. Privacy advocates celebrated. But that golden age lasted barely a year. Governments hated the idea of invisible money. The implications terrified traditional finance. If Bitcoin proved crypto could be decentralized, Zcash proved it could be truly private. And that combination was dangerous to the powers that wanted to track everything. Regulators moved fast. Japan delisted privacy coins. South Korea banned anonymous trading. The European Union started drafting regulations. Major exchanges, including Coinbase for a period, either removed Zcash or restricted its use. ZEC's price collapsed. From over $800, it crashed to under $50. It looked like Zcash was finished. Just another failed cryptocurrency experiment, a cautionary tale of how regulators could crush any project they deemed a threat. The community was devastated. Developers scattered. The hype died. The world moved on. The ghost in the machine, Zcash, never really died. But something remarkable happened beneath the surface while everyone was looking elsewhere. Zcash's developers didn't give up. They kept coding. They refined the zero-knowledge math. They launched the Halo upgrade, which eliminated the need for a trusted setup, a process that had been criticized as a potential vulnerability. More importantly, the technology Zcash pioneered didn't disappear. It evolved. Zero-knowledge proofs, the mathematical foundation that Zcash used for privacy, turned out to be incredibly useful for more than just hiding transactions. Ethereum developers started using ZK proofs for scaling solutions. ZK Sync, Polygon, Starknet, and other Layer 2 solutions all built on the mathematical foundations that Zcash created. Even artificial intelligence startups started using Zcash for data verification. The idea: proved that an AI model was trained on legitimate data without revealing the data itself. Zcash's name faded from conversations, but its code became part of crypto's DNA. The ghost was operating the machine from inside. By 2024, as zero-knowledge proofs became mainstream and institutional investors started caring about them again, Zcash suddenly had new credibility. Here was a coin that had been using this technology for nearly a decade while everyone else was just discovering it. The 2025 catalyst: surveillance goes mainstream. But the real catalyst for Zcash's comeback wasn't technical. It was political. In 2025, as governments worldwide accelerated plans for central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and financial surveillance became more sophisticated, people started asking uncomfortable questions. If every transaction was traceable, if every purchase was monitored, if every financial move could be analyzed by algorithms and government agencies, would anyone have freedom left? China had already implemented real-time transaction tracking. Europe was moving toward the same. The United States was discussing it. And suddenly, the idea of invisible money didn't seem radical anymore. It seemed necessary. Privacy advocates, including some Bitcoin maximalists who had previously dismissed Zcash, started reconsidering. If Bitcoin was the alternative to government money, but Bitcoin transactions were traceable forever on an immutable ledger, then you hadn't really escaped government monitoring. You just moved it to a different platform. Zcash offered something different. You could still use blockchain, still verify the network, still enjoy decentralization, but you could do it privately. In early November 2025, ZEC broke past $400. By mid-November, it reached nearly $700. By December, it settled in the $440 to $450 range, reflecting a more realistic valuation but still representing a stunning comeback. The price surge wasn't driven by speculation. There were no viral TikTok trends about Zcash. No celebrity endorsements. No promises of 100x returns. It was driven by something more fundamental: belief. The regulatory crackdown that backfired. Ironically, the very regulatory pressure that was supposed to kill Zcash may have accelerated its comeback. In 2025, Washington renewed its campaign against privacy coins. Treasury officials and SEC officials called privacy coins potential threats to compliance and law enforcement. They pointed to money laundering and tax evasion as risks. But their aggressive stance had an unexpected effect. It actually convinced more people that privacy coins were important. Developers who had previously been ambivalent about privacy suddenly became passionate about it. Libertarians doubled down on their conviction. Civil rights advocates joined the movement. The consensus shifted from "privacy coins are dangerous" to "privacy is a human right and Zcash is the only major coin truly protecting it." The Tornado Cash trial, where developers were prosecuted for creating open-source software that some people used for money laundering, became a watershed moment. If governments were willing to prosecute developers for code, then privacy coins weren't optional. They were essential. Zcash responded to regulatory pressure by implementing an optional privacy model, allowing users to choose between transparent and shielded transactions. This hybrid approach let exchanges and institutions meet compliance requirements while preserving full privacy for those who needed it. It was a compromise that satisfied both users and regulators. And it proved that privacy and compliance weren't mutually exclusive. Europe tries to regulate, fails to restrict. The European Union took a different approach. Rather than banning privacy coins, they tried to regulate them. The markets in crypto assets, MiCA, framework and the upcoming AMLR6 directive set requirements for anonymity-enhanced tokens. By 2027, privacy coins would need to meet transparency and reporting standards or face restrictions. But here's the thing, Zcash's technology made even these regulations possible to navigate. Users could voluntarily use transparent transactions, creating an audit trail. Yet those who needed privacy could still access it. Europe called it responsible innovation. To Zcash, it was a validation. Even regulators acknowledged that privacy coins existed and needed to be part of the ecosystem. To users in countries with actual censorship or genuine surveillance states, it meant nothing. For them, Zcash remained the only reliable way to move money outside the government tracking grid. The silent strength, why Zcash endures. What makes Zcash impossible to kill isn't its price. It's not hype. It's not marketing. It's the fundamental problem it solves. In a world of increasing surveillance, Zcash provides something nothing else can: true financial privacy without sacrificing blockchain security or decentralization. Bitcoin can't do it. Bitcoin transactions are transparent and immutable. Once you've bought Bitcoin, the entire history of that coin can be traced. In an age of blockchain analysis companies and government surveillance, that's a vulnerability. Ethereum can't do it. Every transaction on Ethereum is visible on the public ledger. Monero can do it, but Monero is even more controversial than Zcash, banned from most exchanges, treated as purely criminal by regulators. Zcash occupies a unique middle ground. It offers real privacy, it's available on most major exchanges, and it uses mathematics that regulators and developers increasingly understand and respect. The zero-knowledge proofs that Zcash uses aren't some sketchy magic trick. They're mathematics that can be audited, tested, and verified. And that's why they're becoming mainstream. The institutional arrival. By late 2025, rumors began circulating about European institutions testing Zcash custody solutions and ETF products. Nothing official, but signals that the old prejudice against privacy coins was fading. Hedge funds started researching Zcash seriously. The reasoning was straightforward: privacy cycles return every few years in crypto. When governments escalate surveillance and people feel threatened, privacy coins rally. When the heat dies down, they fade. But the cycle is repeating faster and with more intensity. Institutions realized they could use Zcash as a hedging tool. Not because they wanted to hide money, but because they recognized the trend: the world was becoming more surveilled, and privacy was becoming more valuable. The technology that changed everything. While the price climbed and regulators debated, the real story was happening in the technology layer. Zero-knowledge proofs, the math that powers Zcash, turned out to be useful for far more than just privacy. Ethereum is using similar technology for scaling solutions. Starkware uses Zcash-to-RKS, a variation that doesn't require a trusted setup, improving on Zcash and RKS, for high-speed transaction processing. Even artificial intelligence companies are exploring zero-knowledge proofs for data verification. The idea: prove that an AI model was trained on legitimate data without revealing the data itself. This technological expansion means that Zcash's core innovation was never just about money. It was about proving things without revealing things. And that's a problem humanity needs to solve in many contexts. The forgotten philosophy: what Zcash really represents. Here's what most people miss about Zcash: it's not primarily an investment. It's a philosophical statement. Bitcoin said, money can be decentralized. Ethereum said, contracts can be programmable. Zcash said, your financial life should be private. That's not a hot take. That's not a get-rich-quick narrative. That's a fundamental position on what crypto should be. For years, nobody wanted to hear it. Bitcoin was too exciting. Ethereum had too many applications. Dogecoin had memes. Zcash just had mathematics and principles. But in 2025, as the world became tired of surveillance and sick of having no privacy, those principles suddenly mattered again. The price is just a symptom. Yes, Zcash went from $54 to $440. That's significant. But the real story isn't the price. The real story is that people rediscovered the principle. The coin didn't change. The technology didn't suddenly become better, though it did improve through updates. What changed was the world's tolerance for financial surveillance. In countries like Argentina, Venezuela, and parts of Eastern Europe, Zcash circulates quietly. Not because of hype or speculation, but because it solves a real problem. How do you move money when your government is debasing the currency or monitoring all transactions? Cash itself was the original privacy tool. As governments pushed toward digital-only money, Zcash became digital cash. That's not a metaphor. It's an identity. The CBDC threat that created Zcash's opportunity. Here's the scenario that terrifies financial freedom advocates. In the next few years, every major government issues a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. These would be fully traceable, fully programmable, and fully controlled by governments. You wouldn't just be using money. You'd be using a system where every transaction could be tracked, taxed, reversed, or blocked by a central authority. In that world, Zcash wouldn't be a luxury good. It would be the only financial tool left that preserves freedom. The EU and US are already developing CBDCs. China has already deployed one. If adoption accelerates, the demand for privacy coins won't be driven by criminals or speculators. It'll be driven by ordinary people who want basic financial privacy. That's the scenario that makes Zcash, currently trading around $440, potentially more valuable than even its $700 peak in November 2025. The critics and their problems. Critics make a fair point: privacy coins can enable tax evasion and money laundering. Cash does the same thing. Checking accounts with international banks do the same thing. The entire financial system has always had ways to hide money if you know who to pay. The real question isn't whether privacy coins enable crime. The question is whether a citizen should have the right to financial privacy. If the answer is yes, then Zcash is essential infrastructure. If the answer is no, then we've accepted a future where every financial move is monitored by default. That's not a technical question. It's a philosophical one. The current state, December 2025. As of December 2025, Zcash is trading in the $440 to $450 range, having pulled back from its November peak of nearly $700. The volatility reflects real uncertainty about regulatory outcomes and adoption rates. But the fundamentals have shifted. Zcash is no longer a pariah coin. It's increasingly recognized as a legitimate tool in a privacy-conscious world. Regulators are moving toward managed regulation rather than outright bans. Developers continue refining the technology. Institutions are testing custody and trading solutions. The comeback is real, but it's not complete. Zcash remains far from its all-time high of $5,900 in 2016. But that comparison misses the point. Zcash was never meant to be a get-rich-quick investment. It was always meant to solve a problem. Why survival itself is victory. What makes Zcash's story remarkable isn't the price. It's that it survived at all. In the world of cryptocurrency, most projects die. They release with hype, fail to deliver, and disappear. Thousands of coins launched after 2016 and are now worthless. Zcash had every reason to die. It was attacked by governments. Delisted by exchanges. Dismissed by major developers. Forgotten by the media. The price collapsed 90% plus from its peak. Yet it persisted. The developers kept coding. The community kept believing. The technology kept improving. And then, at exactly the moment when the world realized it needed what Zcash offered, the coin was there, ready. That's not luck. That's the difference between a real innovation and a hype cycle. The future, privacy or surveillance. The story of Zcash in 2025 is ultimately a story about a choice the world is making. A choice between financial transparency and financial privacy. Between surveillance by default and privacy by right. Bitcoin won the race for digital gold. Ethereum won the race for programmability. Solana won the race for speed. But Zcash is competing in a race that matters just as much, the race to preserve freedom. In a world of central bank digital currencies and absolute financial surveillance, Zcash represents resistance. Not violent resistance. Not illegal resistance. But the quiet, mathematical insistence that some things, like the right to move money without permission, should remain private. The final truth. The most important thing about Zcash isn't its price in December 2025. It's not its technology, though the technology is remarkable. It's that for nearly a decade, Zcash held to its principles when doing so made no sense. No hype. No memes. No promises of easy wealth. Just mathematics and conviction. And when the world finally caught up, when it finally realized that the problems Zcash was solving in 2016 had become the dominant issues in 2025, the coin was still there. Not dead. Not obsolete. Just waiting for the world to remember what it had forgotten. That's the real comeback story. Not the price. The principle. In an age of increasing surveillance and decreasing privacy, Zcash represents something increasingly rare, a reminder that digital money can mean freedom. Whether that freedom will be allowed to exist in the future remains the defining question. But in December 2025, for the first time in years, it seems like the answer might be yes. The ghost of crypto refused to die. And now we're learning why it needed to survive.